Sunday will mark 6 months since the Hamas terror attacks against Israel. Nearly 1,200 people were killed that day. Hundreds of others were taken hostage. Many of them are still being held by Hamas. Among them, Hersh Goldberg-Polin, who was 23 years old on October 7th. Hersh's mother, Rachel Goldberg, and father, Jon Polin, join us here in our WCBS newsroom. It is good to have both of you with us. Rachel, for those who may not be familiar with Hersh, tell our listeners about your son.
So Hersh is a happy-go-lucky, laid-back, good-humored young man who is passionate about soccer. He loves music and music festivals. He has been wild about learning about the world and geography since he was a little boy, and he has wanderlust. He was getting ready for a 2-year trip around the world and had just returned from a 9-week trip in Europe when this tragedy occurred. And, I like to say that it's not that Hersh is perfect, although most mothers do think that their only sons are perfect. But I do say that Hersh is the perfect son for me.
Jon, what do you know about the day Hersh was taken hostage by Hamas?
Yeah, so we know a lot about that day because we were able to find witnesses who were with him as he was abducted. And the basic version is Hersh and his very close friend Anar Shapira were together at the Nova Music Festival. And when chaos broke early in the morning, they and a couple of others got in a car to head north away from the festival. On the road, their car came under fire, like so many of the cars on the road, so they quickly turned around, went back south, at which point rockets were flying overhead, so they jumped out of the car and went into a bomb shelter. Inside of that 5-foot by 8-foot bomb shelter were 29 young people. From those young people, 18 were unfortunately killed that day under carnage, grenade attacks, and gunfire into the bomb shelter. 4, including Hersh, were taken hostage. And we learned about that initially from the survivors who were pretending to be dead under a pile of bodies, but watching what was happening. And what they told us is when Hersh and the 3 other boys were taken captive under gunfire, when Hersh stood up is when they all saw that his left arm had been blown off at the elbow. We subsequently received a video of the entire kidnapping and a strange set of circumstances from Anderson Cooper of CNN, who recognized Hersh from photos as we were being interviewed by him and called us afterwards to say, I have video of the kidnapping, and he sent it to us, and I immediately watched it and immediately recognized that it was indeed Hersh. We know that his last cell phone signal was at 10:25 a.m. from within Gaza. That is what we knew as of the first few days from witnesses and then subsequently the video. Once the first group of hostages was released around days 49, 50, 51, what we learned in addition, not from any of them seeing him, nobody saw him, knew his name, knew the story of a guy with one arm, none of that. But what we learned in general is that people who were taken into Gaza as hostages early in the morning and injured were likely taken to a hospital for medical treatment. So we, for 182 days, have been hoping that he did get that medical treatment, at least basic medical treatment for a blown-off arm. That is what we know about that terrible day.
You have every reason to believe that Hersh is still alive and being held by Hamas?
Well, the way that it has worked so far is we know at this time that there are 134 hostages still being held by Hamas, and that of those 134, 36 are confirmed tragically to be no longer alive. There are around 20 that there is a suspicion that they are not alive, and those 20 or so families have been contacted. And so our intelligence officer who was assigned to us has said that when you hear no news, in this situation, that is indeed good news. And so every day that we don't get a call, the assumption from the intelligence community is that he is still alive, and so are the others.
Each of you is wearing a number taped to your clothing. Our listeners can't see it. That number is 182. It's on a piece of tape that each of you are wearing. Tell us about the significance of wearing this number
On day 26, I was getting tired of having all of these interviews where the first thing I was asked was, how many days has it been since Hersh was stolen? And I decided, from having been a child in the late 70s and remembering Nightline with Ted Koppel, that he used to have a counter that was on the screen every day of the Iran hostage situation. And I remember my father explaining that that's what that number was. And I decided on day 26, I am not answering that question anymore. I am putting the counter on my chest above my heart, and I am going to keep on counting until these people come home. And so every single day I change this number. A lot of people wear a necklace or wear pictures or pins, which is all whatever speaks to someone and helps them, I am in favor of. But for me, I want it to be something that is constantly reminding people that we have failed these human beings who are still underground 182 days later. And you should know, Steve, a lot of people are not realizing of the 134 hostages, there are also not just the 8 U.S. citizens that we know about. There are also 8 Muslim Arabs being held. There are also 7 young men from Thailand who are Buddhist, who were working in Israel. There are people from Nepal. There are people from Mexico, people from Germany. There are people from all different religions. There are Muslims, Jews, Christians, Buddhists, and Hindus being held. And I think that it's really a critical component to be changing the number every day, to be in everyone's face every day saying we have failed these people and we must take action.
You are in New York to mark 6 months since Hersh was abducted during the Hamas attacks. What do you both hope to accomplish during this visit?
Right. So really, we came in with increased level of vigor and energy because it feels to us like we're getting a lot of sympathy from around the world. But day 182 at the pace that we're moving at can become day 282, day 382, day 582. We are here to drive action. We're doing what we can in New York to increase the sense of urgency, and we're on our way to Washington next week. And it's especially important on the heels of the phone call yesterday between President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu, which we've seen the reportings on that call, and we found it incredibly disturbing that the president would talk to Prime Minister Netanyahu all about the need for aid, which we agree with. The tragic deaths last week of 7 aid workers was crushing. The situation of Gazans, civilians who are suffering, is crushing. But to have that call and not mention the fact that there are 134 hostages was devastating. To have him not mention the fact that there are 8 Americans being held hostage was devastating. To have it happen and not have everything be conditioned upon the immediate release of hostages is devastating. Things are hot in the Middle East right now. And the thing that we believe can most successfully happen and release tension in the region is get these 134 hostages home. Nothing should be happening without that contingency. And we plan to deliver that message loudly and clearly on this trip.
Hersh is a dual American-Israeli citizen. I'd like to keep politics out of this, but it's impossible. Is enough being done by Israel and the United States to bring those hostages home?
Well, I think the obvious answer is no, because they are not home. And I don't know that it has to be political. You know, something that has been very heartening to us during these past almost 6 months is that whoever we speak to, whether it's someone in the administration or anyone in Congress, it has been very supportive and very helpful to have people who are extremely on the right, Republicans extremely on the right, and Democrats extremely on the left, coming together and saying, this is a bipartisan issue. This is not political. Nobody here wants people held against their will. Certainly not any of the 134, and especially not the 8 U.S. citizens who our leaders feel an allegiance to and feel a responsibility for.
If I can just add, Steve, you asked about, are the U.S. and Israel doing enough? And Rachel answered no. What I want to point out is the world is not doing enough. Israel and the U.S. are 2 of the 5 parties who have been in and out of the negotiating room, the other 3 being Hamas, Egypt, and Qatar. And then there are other countries that seem to be in some way involved behind the scenes. The fact that we as a world cannot figure this out and get these people home is a global failure of politicians, of influencers, of parents. We have all failed.
As our time runs short, I want to end this by asking, the 2 of you have been very vocal advocates. You've done interview after interview. Rachel, spoken with me several times. You're very patient. You don't shy away from the camera lights. I wonder why. This can't be easy for you.
It's not really a choice, to be honest, when it's a very primal, innate, natural response when anyone feels that their child is in danger. The natural reflexive answer is run. And that is what we have done. For 182 days, we are running as fast as we can to the ends of the earth to turn over every single stone to try to save our son Hersh and all of the other 133 people who are with him. And we will continue to do that until we reach our goal.
Rachel Goldberg, Jon Polin, we wish you the best of luck, and to you and your family, and to Hersh. Rachel, what is it that we always say every time we finish an interview?
We always say next time we'll be doing this together with Hersh.
Rachel and Jon, thank you for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thank you.